Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something. You weren't born to be a shadow. You weren't placed on this earth to be a whisper when your soul was designed to roar. But somewhere along the way, you started shrinking, not because you lacked power, but because the people around you were afraid of how bright your light could burn. You started dimming your brilliance to soothe their insecurities. You started hiding your victories so they wouldn't feel like failures. You started toning yourself down, dressing your dreams in modesty, biting your tongue at the table just to make someone else feel like a man or feel like a woman. And now look at you, suffocating under the weight of everyone else's comfort zone. Let me tell you the truth. They don't want you to hear playing small will never protect you from being resented. The moment you dare to shine, even politely, someone will say you're too much. So why not just go ahead and be too much? Why not give the world the version of you that keeps you awake at night? The version you pray about, journal about, cry about. Because let me tell you, your life does not belong to their comfort zone. Your potential is not a threat unless they're committed to staying stagnant. And when they are, they'll do everything they can to make you shrink back into the box they built for you. The box labeled predictable, easy to manage, never too loud, never outshine. But what if the very thing God put in you was designed to disturb small-minded people? What if your presence was never meant to blend in, but to provoke? Not provoke with arrogance, but with purpose, with excellence, with fire. You've been walking around like you owe them your silence. You don't. You've been walking around like you have to keep choosing between love and power. You don't. You think it's noble to downplay your wins. You think it's holy to act confused about your purpose. You think being quiet makes you likable. But what it really does is make you invisible to the people who were sent to bless you. You can't attract what you pretend not to deserve. Let me say that again for the part of you that keeps apologizing for your vision. You cannot attract what you pretend not to deserve. Stop playing like your calling is a hobby. Stop making your life negotiable just because someone doesn't have the capacity to applaud you without feeling small. Their ego is not your emergency. Let that sink in. You are not required to tiptoe through life so that insecure people feel tall. You are not responsible for pretending to be weak so they can pretend to be strong. And you do not need to keep making yourself digestible to people who were never meant to sit at your table. Understand this, growth will always offend the stagnant. That's just the price of elevation. I know it's hard. I know it's lonely. I know what it's like to want love so bad that you'll dilute yourself for it. You'll let them label your ambition as arrogance. You'll let them label your boundaries as coldness. You'll let them shame your confidence into silence. But God did not plant that dream inside of you just to watch you bury it under their ego. Let them get uncomfortable. Let them talk. Let them squirm in the presence of your growth. Your expansion is not up for debate. Your shine does not require a permission slip, because the people who are truly for you, they won't be intimidated. They'll be inspired. They won't compete. They'll celebrate. They won't shrink you. They'll stretch with you. Stop mourning the loss of those who left when you started becoming. They were never meant to survive your becoming. You've been editing yourself so they can recognize you. But hear me. You're evolving into someone they were never meant to understand. And that's okay. That's growth. That's God. You're going to lose people. You're going to be misunderstood. You're going to be too loud for some, too ambitious for others, too intense, too focused, too joyful, too spiritual, too healed, too free. Be that anyway. You're going to ruffle feathers. Do it with grace. You're going to outgrow your circle. Expand anyway. You're going to walk into rooms where your presence convicts people who settle. Stand tall anyway. The truth is, the more you honor your calling, the more uncomfortable you will make people who are committed to their comfort zones. That's not your problem. That's your proof that you're shifting dimensions. Proof that you're stepping into the level where only bold ones go. The level where obedience is louder than opinions. The level where vision is louder than validation. Let them mislabel you. Let them misunderstand you. Let them mock your confidence, because the only thing worse than being misunderstood is being invisible to your own destiny. The cost of playing small is your purpose. Let that sit in your chest. You think you're protecting relationships by dimming your light, but what you're really doing is betraying the version of you that God is trying to raise. There is a version of you that's waiting for you to stop apologizing. She's waiting for you to stop putting her in the attic every time people come over. He's waiting for you to stop pretending you don't want more. They're waiting for you to stand up and say, I'm done being afraid of my own fire. Because if you won't claim your greatness, who will? Your family? They might not understand. Your friends? They might not cheer. Your partner? They might shrink from the heat of your glow. But that doesn't mean you turn it off. It means you keep glowing until the right people come home to your light. There are people assigned to your destiny who can only find you if you stop hiding. There are rooms that will never open unless you walk in like you belong there. There are miracles waiting on the other side of your obedience, not your apology. You think your humility is noble, but when humility becomes self-erasure, it's no longer holy, it's bondage. Stop calling it humility when it's really fear in disguise. You know your gift. You feel it in your bones, and the world needs it. So no, you don't have time to stay small. You don't have time to babysit egos. You don't have time to rehearse your limitations just so someone else feels better about settling. You've got mountains to move. You've got chains to break. You've got generations to inspire, and none of that happens in the shadows. This is your permission slip to step out. This is your call to rise. This is the moment you stop asking for a seat and start building the whole damn table. This is when you stop explaining your worth and start embodying it. Stop playing small to keep their ego comfortable. You weren't called to be comfortable. You were called to be chosen. You weren't called to be liked. You were called to be light. So light up the darkness. Let them adjust. You think you're doing them a favor by staying quiet about your vision. But silence is not loyalty. Silence is slow death. Every time you mute your brilliance, a piece of your destiny fades into the background. And one day, if you're not careful, you'll wake up in a life that looks nothing like what you were born for, surrounded by people who applauded your silence, but would never have survived your truth. You weren't made to be tolerated. You were made to be unforgettable. They will call it pride. They'll call it attitude. But what they're really afraid of is how undeniable you've become. They want the version of you who second guesses everything, who waits for validation, who asks permission before breathing. But that version of you is gone, and in its place is a warrior, one who finally understands that humility is not about hiding. It's about knowing your power and choosing not to use it to hurt. But don't mistake that for weakness. Don't mistake your self-control for invisibility. You're not here to fit in. You're here to stand out. Stop asking, will they like me? And start asking, does this serve the vision? If the answer is no, walk away. People-pleasing is a full-time job that pays you in regret. You were not hired to play a role in their fantasy. You were born to write your own script. Loud, bold, unapologetic. Some of you are shrinking in your relationships. You're holding back your genius so your partner won't feel intimidated. You're hiding your leadership because they still want to feel like the provider. You're withholding your voice so they don't call you too independent. Let me tell you, you weren't created to pretend. If your light offends someone, that's not a cue to dim it. That's a cue to assess whether they were ever meant to walk beside you in the first place. There's a certain kind of fear that comes with stepping into your full potential. Not fear of failure, but fear of what success will cost you. Because success will cost you comfort. It will cost you approval. It will cost you people who preferred you when you were uncertain, confused, dependent. But let it cost what it must. The price of purpose is always paid in discomfort. You think you're too ambitious? Good. That means you finally stopped living by the limits someone else drew around your life. That means you've broken the spell. The spell of humble enough, quiet enough, small enough. That means you've stopped confusing respect with restriction. They will tell you stay in your lane, but they'll never tell you that the road they want you on goes in circles. You've got dreams that break the mold, visions that don't require their blueprint, ideas that make them nervous. Don't ask them to co-sign what they've never had the courage to chase. Some people can't see your vision because it wasn't given to them. It was given to you. And if you keep waiting for them to see it, you'll die with it buried inside you. Let this be the year you stop explaining yourself, the year you stop softening your voice, so you don't shake the room. Shake the damn room. Speak with conviction. Walk with the authority of someone who finally realized that playing small never protected them. It only delayed them. You can't serve the world and babysit egos at the same time. You've got to choose. And if you choose to rise, understand this. Not everyone will clap. Not everyone will understand. Some will leave. Some will gossip. Some will try to pull receipts from your past, desperate to prove you don't deserve the platform you're standing on. Let them. Let them dig. Because while they're busy excavating your history, you'll be busy building your legacy. You don't owe anyone an apology for your transformation. Some of the people around you were never rooting for you. They were rooting for your silence. As long as you stayed manageable, agreeable, predictable, they had no issue. But the moment you became magnetic, the moment you started speaking like you believed in your own future, they flinched. And that's your sign. That's your proof. That's your permission. Stop asking for grace from people who only gave you room when you were weak. The stronger you become, the more you'll disrupt their illusion of superiority. Let that be their battle, not yours. Your job is to rise, not tiptoe, not shrink, not downplay. Rise, get honest. There are conversations you've avoided because you didn't want to look too passionate. Rooms you've exited quietly because your presence was too loud. Dreams you've whispered instead of shouting because someone told you to be realistic. But realistic is a cage when it's handed to a visionary. They want you to think you're crazy. They want you to doubt your instinct. They want you to tone it down. But nothing world-changing ever came from being toned down. Nothing legendary was birthed out of fear. You think staying small will make them love you. They'll still leave. You think success will make them hate you. They'll talk either way. So you might as well be authentically, courageously, unapologetically you, because your destiny doesn't care about their feelings. Your purpose doesn't require their approval, and your greatness was never meant to fit their comfort zone. This is your moment, not tomorrow, not when they're finally ready, not when you feel qualified. Now you have been equipped, you have been called, you have been prepared in silence. You've walked through fire just to realize you weren't made of paper. You survived heartbreak, betrayal, loneliness, doubt, and you're still here. Now what? Now you build, now you lead, now you stop translating your value into terms others can understand and start living like the anointed force you are. You will be misunderstood, you will intimidate, you will outgrow people, but you will also inspire, you will transform, you will create shockwaves that make silent warriors stand up. You will give voice to people who've been waiting for someone like you to go first. So go first. Let your courage offend. Let your excellence disrupt them. Let your glow unsettle those committed to shadows. But do not under any circumstance go back to small. Every time you delay your next move because you're worried about how it'll make someone else feel, you grant them power over your destiny. Think about that. You're editing your journey with scissors they didn't even earn. You're negotiating your calling like it's a group project. But purpose is not a democracy. Purpose is personal. It's raw, it's real, and it doesn't wait for consent. You're not selfish for prioritizing your elevation. You're strategic because people who drain your energy while demanding your loyalty are not your tribe, they're your tether. They will keep you grounded in the worst way, not by keeping you steady, but by keeping you stuck. And stuck isn't safe. Stuck is slow death. It's watching your best ideas rot on the vine because you were too polite to challenge the room. It's burying your creativity under their insecurities. It's smiling in rooms where you should be speaking. It's watching someone less qualified walk through the door you were too afraid to knock on. Let me tell you, silence doesn't protect peace. It only postpones the confrontation. You're not tired because you're doing too much. You're tired because you're doing too little of what ignites your spirit. You're exhausted because you keep performing a version of yourself that fits their narrative. But their version of you is safe, predictable, dependent, and that's not who you are anymore. You were never meant to live on mute. You were never meant to dim your radiance for the sake of someone else's temporary comfort. When you're around the right people, your confidence won't be an offense. Your ideas won't be seen as threats. Your growth won't trigger jealousy. It will trigger momentum. And if they can't clap for you, they were never cheering to begin with. Stop rehearsing modesty when what's needed is mastery. Stop pretending to be uncertain just so others don't feel left behind. Growth requires speed, sharpness, and yes, sometimes separation. There are people you love who will be allergic to your next level. Love them from a distance if you must, but don't slow your stride to keep them close. You've tasted your own potential. You've glimpsed what's possible. And once you've seen what you're capable of, you can't pretend blindness. You can't return to average. You can't shrink back to familiar. What they call too much is what makes you unstoppable. You don't need to water yourself down. You need to stop pouring yourself out for people who wouldn't bleed a drop for you. You've been overextending, over-explaining, overcompensating, and still they question your worth. That's not love. That's control. That's fear. That's convenience. But you were born for conviction. Some of you have been walking through life apologizing for your instincts, shrinking from the very things that make you remarkable. You question your boldness. You hesitate before you speak. You carry the weight of everyone's expectations like chains disguised as kindness. But here's the truth. Not everyone is meant to walk with you into your breakthrough. Some people are just chapters, not co-authors. Release them with peace. Stop collecting broken opinions and calling them feedback. Stop letting unqualified people tell you what greatness should look like. If they've never built anything, they don't get a vote in your blueprint. And if they've never dared greatly, they can't measure your courage. You're not difficult. You're discerning. You're not intimidating. You're intentional. You're not dramatic. You're destined. The problem isn't that you want too much. It's that you've been told to settle so long you've forgotten what it feels like to be hungry. But hunger is holy. Hunger is how you know your soul is still alive. Don't let comfort kill your appetite. Don't let fear flatten your ambition. You've got fire in your bones, and too many nights you've spent trying to hide the smoke. You've got wind in your lungs, and too many times you've held your breath, hoping they'd find you more bearable. But this is not your season to be bearable. This is your season to be brave, to launch before you're ready, to speak even when your voice shakes, to choose yourself even if it breaks the pattern. And yes, the pattern will break. The cycle of being what they need instead of who you are will shatter. The role you've played in their fantasy will collapse. The version of you they depended on, the smaller, softer, quieter one, will disappear. And in its place will stand someone undeniable, someone not built on likes and affirmations, someone forged in late nights, silent prayers, and hard truth, someone who no longer sacrifices legacy for likability. You were not born to be someone's accessory. You were born to be an answer. You were born to disturb the silence. You were born to question the system. You were born to shift atmospheres just by walking in. So stop lowering your frequency just to stay in tune with noise. Rise higher. Let them say you've changed. That's the point. Let them say you're distant. Growth requires altitude. Let them say you're arrogant. Confidence is often mistaken for pride by those who've never stood firm in their own name. Don't wait for them to see it. They might never see it. Some people aren't blind. They're committed to ignorance. No matter how loudly your life speaks, they'll still pretend they don't hear it. Let that go. You don't owe them clarity. You owe yourself momentum. And you can't move if you keep looking back to make sure they're still watching. Look ahead. That's where your future is. That's where the open doors are. That's where the people who speak your language are waiting. People who don't need you to dilute. People who don't flinch when you shine. People who aren't just cheering. They're building. They're rising. They're ready. but they can't find you if you're still camouflaged in self-denial. Your destiny has a tone, a rhythm, a color. But when you keep blending in to soothe those who've stopped dreaming, you vanish from your own story. And you were never meant to disappear. You were meant to dominate, not to control people, but to command your life, to walk into rooms and shift the energy, not by arrogance, but by alignment, to step into purpose and let every small version of you fall away like dead leaves in autumn. Let them fall. The ones who can't handle your growth were never your roots. There is a version of you that no one has met yet, not because it doesn't exist, but because you've been too polite to introduce them. That version of you doesn't ask for a seat, it builds kingdoms. That version of you doesn't perform humility by wearing invisibility like a badge of honor. It walks in certainty, not arrogance, but alignment. And alignment always looks like rebellion to those still bound by approval. You've kept quiet long enough, not because you lacked the words, but because you didn't want your clarity to offend someone else's confusion. But what if your voice is the one the world has been waiting for? What if your courage unlocks doors that have been sealed for generations? Your transformation was never meant to be understood by everyone. It was meant to be witnessed by the ones brave enough to change with you, witnessed by the ones lost in their own silence, who need a model of what freedom looks like in motion, witnessed by the ones who, like you, were told to sit down, be small, make peace with mediocre. You are not here to make peace with mediocre. You are here to challenge it, break it, replace it with something holy, something bold, something impossible, until it's done. And yes, it will be lonely sometimes. You'll outgrow conversations. You'll stop laughing at jokes you used to entertain. You'll feel disconnected from places that once felt like home. But don't confuse discomfort with disobedience. You're not broken, you're breaking free. What once satisfied you no longer feeds you. That's not a crisis, that's an awakening. You're evolving, your appetite is changing. And when your hunger changes, your table must change too. Stop inviting people to dine who can only digest your silence. If they can't stomach your truth, they don't deserve your presence. And if the room grows too small for your ideas, that's not your cue to fold them up. It's your sign to build new rooms. Every time you shrink to make others feel tall, you betray the very mission you were sent here to fulfill. And missions aren't optional. You don't get to opt out just because the people around you aren't ready. You weren't sent to blend in. You were deployed to disrupt, to confront the silence, to question the traditions, to live in such a way that mediocrity feels insulted in your presence. You don't need to shout to be powerful. You don't need to prove your worth through noise. But you do need to stop retreating every time someone flinches at your progress. You do need to stop rehearsing the smaller version of yourself, hoping it'll earn you favor. Favor isn't found in shrinking. Favor finds you when you expand with boldness, when you stop withholding the parts of you that make others nervous. There is no crown for being the most liked, but there is a crown for being the most obedient to the calling over your life. And that crown can't be stolen, only surrendered. Stop surrendering it. Stop exchanging your fire for their comfort. Stop editing your light to fit their dim understanding. Stop postponing your rise because you don't want to lose what's already weighing you down. You don't have to abandon love to embrace growth, but sometimes love means letting go. Not out of hate, but out of honor. Out of respect for who you are becoming, out of reverence for the voice that's finally waking up inside of you and asking, why not now? Why not the book? Why not the business? Why not the boundary? Why not the dream? Why not the bold, unrelenting decision to choose yourself for once and do it out loud? You are not difficult for wanting more. You are not selfish for refusing to water down your desires. And you are not arrogant for believing that your presence was meant to shift atmospheres. You are aware, you are aligned, You are awake. They'll try to twist that awareness into ego. Let them. They can mislabel your strength, but they cannot dismantle your assignment. And your assignment is clear now. You are not here to decorate a cage. You are here to break it open. You are not here to make everyone comfortable. You are here to make purpose unavoidable, to make faith louder than fear, to make excellence your native language. There is no reward for disappearing. There is no applause worth earning. If it means silencing your truth, you don't have to burn to keep anyone else warm. And no, not everyone will light the fire that you've become. Let them leave. The ones who matter will walk through that fire with you. The ones who belong will be drawn by the heat. The ones assigned to your life will not require your smallness as a condition of love. You are no longer required to choose between kindness and clarity. You can be gentle and powerful, soft and unshakable, loving and immovable. You don't need to dilute your essence to be digestible. You need only to be true, true to the voice inside you that's done being ignored, true to the call that keeps you up at night, true to the fire in your belly that says there's more for me than this, and there is so much more. But more won't arrive where smallness is worshipped. More won't bloom in the soil of self-betrayal. More doesn't come to those who constantly explain themselves to people who've already decided not to understand. More comes to those who build even if they have to build alone at first. More comes to those who leap even when their legs shake. More comes to those who stop waiting for permission and start walking in purpose. You are not too late. You are not too far behind. You are not broken. You are becoming. And in this becoming, you will offend. You will disrupt. You will walk away from what you thought you couldn't live without. But you'll find something better yourself. The fullest, most unapologetic version of you. The you that doesn't shrink. The you that doesn't bow to guilt. The you that doesn't seek refuge in fear disguised as wisdom. That version of you is real and ready and rising. Let them misunderstand. Let them misinterpret. Let them miss the old you, because the new you, the real you, doesn't owe anyone comfort, only truth, only power, only legacy, only life. Some people will only love you when you're easy to control, not because they love who you are, but because they love who you become around them. Quiet, hesitant, moldable. They don't fall in love with your spirit. They fall in love with your obedience to their comfort. And the moment you break that mold, the moment you stop seeking their approval, they call it betrayal. But what you call self-respect, they will always call rebellion. Let them. You've served enough sentences in their prison of approval. You've walked on eggshells, swallowed your thoughts and translated your fire into whispers. For what? A nod, a half smile, a seat at a table built on fragile egos. You don't need that seat anymore. Build your own table. Better yet, build the room. Because when you build it, no one can kick you out. When you own it, you stop asking to be invited. Ownership shifts everything. Your posture, your tone, your decisions. It replaces permission with conviction. And conviction is magnetic. People don't follow confusion. They follow clarity. They follow people who walk in what they know, not what they hope others will tolerate. So stop hoping they'll understand. Start trusting that what's in you is undeniable, even if it's uncomfortable to them. You owe yourself a life that doesn't require daily apology, a life where your joy isn't measured by how palatable you are, where you no longer dim to fit, where you stop trading impact for invisibility, where your worth is no longer on the auction block for temporary companionship, because anyone who needs you to shrink in order to love you never loved you to begin with. They loved your silence. They loved your compliance, but they never honored your essence. And you deserve to be honored, not because you're perfect, but because you're here, fighting for a version of yourself that doesn't beg to be seen. So raise your standard, raise your voice, raise the bar on what you will and won't tolerate. Stop attending every conversation that cost you your peace. Stop offering grace to patterns that have already proven they won't change. Stop giving loyalty to environments that punish your authenticity. You weren't born to survive emotional starvation. You were born to thrive in abundance, in love, in purpose, in boldness, in brilliance. And abundance requires space, so clear it. Clear the relationships that stunt you. Clear the self-doubt you inherited. Clear the narratives you've outgrown. Clear the roles you were assigned that have nothing to do with who you actually are. You were not their savior. You were not their mirror. You were not their crutch. You were not their mask. You were a force, a movement in motion, a transformation embodied, and nothing about your becoming should require you to break yourself into smaller pieces. Some people only know how to love broken things, but your healing, your wholeness, that disrupts the cycle, that challenges the dynamic, that forces them to confront who they've chosen to remain, and not everyone is ready for that. But don't shrink to accommodate immaturity. Don't fold so they feel tall. Don't dilute your wisdom so they can stay willfully ignorant. The moment you accept that not everyone can handle your wholeness, you stop grieving the rooms you had to leave. You stop chasing closure in places that never gave you clarity. You stop explaining joy to people addicted to chaos, because peace doesn't need permission to exist. It simply arrives, and everything that doesn't resonate with it falls away. Let it fall. Let the old friendships unravel. Let the expectations collapse. Let the mask drop. Let the false obligations expire. You've worn too many faces to make everyone else comfortable. You've smiled through silence. You've clapped for others while hiding your own pain. You've mastered the art of appearing fine when you were suffocating. But now is not the time for pretense. Now is the time for presence. Show up in rooms as yourself, not as the watered down version, not as the agreeable shell, as your full, expansive, electric self. Walk in with your boundaries intact, your head high, your values unshaken, and watch what shifts. Because the moment you stop apologizing, the right people start recognizing you. The ones who see your fire and don't flinch. The ones who match your energy, not mock it. The ones who elevate conversations instead of avoiding them. The ones who don't need you small to feel seen. You'll find them, but first you have to release the ones who taught you shrinking was survival. They meant well. Maybe, but good intentions don't excuse broken impact. And just because someone once clapped for you doesn't mean they're qualified to coach your future. Choose wisely who gets access to your becoming. Not everyone has earned a front row seat to your breakthrough. Some are only meant to be footnotes in your testimony. Others are there to sharpen you, but not to define you. And then there are those who arrive like confirmation, not competition. Keep them close. You're not hard to love. You're just not meant to be loved by people who fear growth. You're not too intense. You just carry a level of truth that pierces through illusion. You're not too loud. You've just spent years muting yourself for people who didn't deserve your frequency. You're finally vibrating at your true level, and yes, that will cause friction. Yes, it will stir envy. Yes, it will shake foundations. But anything that breaks under the pressure of your authenticity wasn't built to last. Let it break. Because real relationships don't require you to code switch your soul. Real alignment doesn't ask you to amputate your ambition. Real purpose never demands you erase your power. So speak up, walk away, raise your price. Say no without guilt. Say yes without shrinking. Say this is who I am now without apology. Because who you are now has weathered storms that should have drowned you. Who you are now has walked out of fires stronger than you walked in. Who you are now doesn't owe anyone a single ounce of explanation. You are not the one who changed. You are the one who finally remembered who you've always been. And remembering is liberation. So stand in it. Speak from it. Build from it. Love from it. Lead from it. Rise from it. Let your life become the proof that shrinking never protected anyone but truth. Truth liberates. And once you've tasted that kind of freedom, there's no going back, not to silence, not to shadows, not to pretending. You were born for impact. So stop folding into the background and let the world feel your full weight.